Hey guys, Doug B here. Now as we all know, Firmware 1.6 has a lot of crazy new effects, amps and cabinets, but the new scenes enhancement is a real game changer. Now I keep getting messages from some of you folks saying that you are still having trouble with scenes and understanding how they work. So for me, I figured with this new scenes enhancement, it is time for a new scenes video, and hopefully this will help a lot more people understand how to use scenes. Alrighty, let's dig in step by step. So why would we want to use scenes in the first place? Well, prior to the Tone Master Pro, there weren't any modelers that had seamless switching from preset to preset. There would be a noticeable gap up to a second in length before the new preset would kick in. Now, that may not sound like much, but if you were using different presets in a song, that 1 second gap can feel like an eternity. So Fractal and Line 6, who were the two biggest modeler developers in the early days, created scenes, although Line 6 called them snapshots. So what are scenes? Well, in simplest terms, scenes are like mini presets. You could have up to 8 scenes in a preset. Scenes allow you to have different amp, cab, or effect blocks turned on or off. They also allowed you to change some of the parameters with scene modifiers. Scenes help to get rid of the dreaded pedal board dance, where a guitarist might be turning more than one pedal on or off at the same time. Scenes were still not completely gapless, but the gap was barely perceptible in a gigging situation. Then the Tone Master Pro came out in October 2023 with gapless preset switching, so it seemed like there was no good reason to use scenes anymore. However, many new Tone Master Pro owners were former Fractal and Line 6 owners, and they were used to using scenes and snapshots. Long story short, Fender listened to its customers and their version of scenes was released, and was much easier to use. Scene modifiers were a thing of the past. You could adjust any and all parameters in your scenes on the Tone Master Pro. Fender has been tweaking the process ever since, and in Firmware 1.6 we got a new global parameter, scene change behavior. We also got a couple of scene fixes. Fixed issues related to scene and preset settings, MIDI, amp control, and spillover, being overwritten by other scenes or bass preset. Also, virtual foot switches in the Pro Control app now send scene MIDI commands. I'm confident that Fender will keep updating and improving how scenes work on the Tone Master Pro, but for right now we seem to have a very robust scenes setup. Alright, let's switch over to the Pro Control app and create a couple of presets that use scenes. The first thing we need to do is to go into Global Settings. Click on the gear icon in the upper right hand corner. This brings you to the User Preferences panel. Click on Foot Switch down here at the bottom of the panel. This brings you to the Foot Switch Settings panel. The fifth option is new and called Scene Change Behavior. You have two options: Maintain Changes, which is the default setting, and Discard Changes. Use Maintain Changes for the time being. We'll go into when you would want to use discard changes a little later in the video. Now, even though we're using the default setting, I still wanted you to be aware of this new setting and where you'll find it. This will become important later on. Now we're at the point of planning the preset and the scenes you'll be creating. Some of you might want to create a kitchen sink preset with scenes turning various pedals on and off. Others might want to create scenes that can be set up for intro, verse, chorus, bridge, solo, outro, etc. Your methodology is completely up to you. Now, even though we can create up to 8 scenes, there is also the base scene, which is the same as a preset with no scene set up. It's the base or foundation of your preset. Alrighty then, let's create a new preset. Even though the temptation is to use all new amps and effects, I'm going to use a mix of old and new. I've added the Big Apple Fuzz, the Comic Sans drive, and the compressor pedal in front of the 65 Deluxe Reverb Blonde NBC amp-only model. After the amp, we have the boost, the analog stereo chorus, the stereo flanger, the stereo harmonic tremolo, the stereo doubler, the stereo tape echo, and the large plate reverb. The active blocks are the amp, the stereo doubler, the stereo tape delay, and the large plate reverb. This is how I want this preset to boot up when I select it. Right now, it is best to save the preset. I called it Scenes Test 1. I'm also copying this preset and calling it Scenes Test 2. You'll see why a bit later. Okay, let's make some scenes. The first preset will just have some basic scenes and will be set up kind of like a kitchen sink preset. Alright, go down here to Foot Switch Assign and click on it. This puts you in the preset foot switch assignment panel. Click on the plus sign for the leftmost foot switch on the lower row. Now you're in the Select Assignment Type panel. Click on Scene. This brings you to the Scene Name panel. Scene 1 will have the Big Apple Fuzz activated, so I'll call this scene Fuzz. Type in the name, then click on the blue Confirm in the upper right-hand corner. This brings you to the Scene Foot Switch Assignment panel. I'm changing the active color to orange. Color inactive is dim. Scene spillover is on. Scene MIDI is basically default. There is no scene MIDI. Amp control 1 is off, and amp control 2 is off. Now go up to here where it says Preset View and click on it. Click on the Big Apple Fuzz so that it gets highlighted. Now click on the blue Bypassed. It turns gray and now it says Bypass. Boom! That is it. You've just created your first scene. And you can see because here is the scene name right up here. If you had set scene change behavior to discard changes, you'd have had to save your preset at this point because otherwise you'd lose everything you set up in the first scene as soon as you started working on the second scene. Now click on the signal path so that the Big Apple Fuzz isn't highlighted, and we'll repeat this process 7 more times for some of the other pedals. Then you absolutely must remember to save your preset. Otherwise, all of the work that you just did will be lost. All right, let me go ahead and set up these other scenes. All right, I've finished setting up the other scenes. Let me show you what I did, then we'll demo this preset. Scene 1 turns on the Big Apple Fuzz. Scene 2 turns on the Comic Sans drive. Scene 3 turns on the compressor. Scene 4 turns on the boost. Scene 5 turns on the chorus. Scene 6 turns on the flanger. Scene 7 turns on the trem. And Scene 8 is a solo scene, and it turns on both the Comic Sans drive and the boost. All right, let me demo this preset for you. Here's how this preset sounds when you boot it up. And here's Fuzz. Here's the Comic Sans drive. Here's the compressor. And here's the boost. Here's the chorus. Here's the flanger. the harmonic tremolo, and then finally, solo. The second preset, which I call Scenes Test 2, is similar to Scenes Test 1, but it'll have 4 scenes foot switches and 4 effects foot switches. This setup should give you a little bit more flexibility. So let's go down to foot switches sign. You'll notice that I put the 4 scenes on the bottom row and 4 effects on the top row. Now you'll be able to choose any of the 4 scenes plus the bass scene, and you'll also be able to use any or all of the 4 effects with each scene. Again, make sure that you have saved your preset. Now we go back to global settings and change scene change behavior from maintain changes to discard changes. But why would we want to do that? Well, let's set scene change behavior back to maintain changes for this example. Okay, let's just say that you chose the CSD scene, and then you also turned on the chorus. Then you switch to the solo scene. If you switch back to the CSD scene, the chorus is still on, but you don't want it on now. So you also have to click the chorus foot switch to turn it off. Now you don't want to have to do that, so you'd go up to global settings, foot switch, scene change behavior, discard changes. Go back. Now we're on the CSD scene. We'll choose the chorus. We'll switch to the solo scene, and now we'll switch back to the CSD scene. This time, the chorus does not come on. All right, let me demo this preset for you. This is the Scenes Test 2 preset, and this is the bass scene. Now you can see that there are scenes on the bottom row, and then effects on the top row. Let's say we choose the CSD. And now let's add the analog stereo chorus. Now we'll switch over to the fuzz. And when we switch back to the CSD, the stereo analog chorus isn't on. That's because discard changes was used in the scene change behavior setting. Now, I hope this video helps give you a better understanding of how scenes work, and that maybe you'll give it a try yourself. You might decide that using scenes is something that you prefer, or you just might decide that you want to use presets because they're gapless switching between the presets, so you don't see any need for scenes. Whichever way you go, there is no problem. What works for you is what works. Now, these were just 2 very simple examples of how to put together presets with scenes. Remember, every parameter in a scene can be changed. For instance, like if the reverb has 6 different parameters, you can set all of those parameters different in every scene. It's up to what you want to do. And let's face it, that is some crazy flexibility right there. Now, I'd like to know, are you going to be using scenes? Do you think you'll be starting to use scenes? Or are just presets more your thing? Leave me some comments down below. And if you're still here, thank you so much for stopping by and sticking around. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, drop me a line down here, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Now, next week we will have all new content about the new firmware for the Tone Master Pro. You don't want to miss that. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, have a fantastic week, and I'll be talking with you again next Wednesday.